So let's have a talk about this Cascade link. Had it on the bike for a few weeks now. I went, from the start, I went DPX2, so standard shock that comes on this bike. DPX2, 0.6 token, obviously, waste of time. It's already too progressive with the 0.6. No token is the standard baseline setup for this bike, that shock. Felt good, but too choppy. It was still a little bit too progressive, and when I was hitting fast lips, it was bucky. And you can't take that away with rebound. It's just bucky. You can compromise and cover it up, but it's not fixing the problem. So I moved on to the Super Deluxe. So too progressive for the DPX2, definitely. Moved on to the Super Deluxe. Meg-neg, 2 tokens, 4 bands in the negative, 2 tokens in the positive is the perfect setup for this bike, in my opinion. That's what I've found anyway. You can go to 3 bands, anywhere between 2 and 4 bands you can kind of float between. I like the 4 bands, 2 tokens, it's good. Cascade link, I had to go to 1 token, so I left the bands the same. Went to the 1 token, and it was pretty good. It was a great ride height. The ride height was excellent. The speed off the line was a bit sluggish, and it was still a little bit choppy. It was still a little bit... It was the equivalent to the DPX2 no spacer. Close. The DPX2 no space was... Yeah, it was close. So the Super Deluxe I could probably run like that. I could probably leave it, and if this was going to stay on the bike, I'd say, yep, cool, that'll do. But it still wasn't as good as I can get this bike feeling with the standard link. So the standard link is 11% progressivity or progression. This takes it up to 24%. So it's a big increase. It's a massive increase in progression, and it's basically the same as putting a heap of tokens into your rear shock. So you've got to go softer off the top, which ends up in deeper in the sag, in order for it to not be too choppy at the end. So we're getting a bit lost. We're getting a bit lost there. We'll go back to what works and my steps to get it set up. Super Deluxe, wasn't really happy with the final setup of it, and when I hit fast rough tracks, it really appeared that it was too choppy in the back. It was still a little bit progressive, and I wasn't a fan. I wasn't really into it. I could probably find the same setup as I had pre-link by taking another spacer out, but higher in the sag again, and just not quite the sweet spot. I feel like this bike's really, really good with the standard link, so I was looking to see if I could improve it one way or another. Enter the coil. I got a coil. I had a 450 spring on it. So this is a Marzocchi Bomber CR. 450 spring on it. It was too soggy, too slow. You couldn't go fast anywhere except a completely vertical trail. So there wasn't a lot to push against, and then counter that with compression. Felt good, so add more and more compression, way more stable, more comfortable, but still sluggish, and then gets to the point where there's too much compression, then there's no play in the bike. It's just a dead thick, wet piece of carpet at the back. So not fast, not great. 500 spring. 500 spring was definitely better. Perfect amount of support, perfect carrying speed. It was excellent at carrying speed, but too high in the sag. So standing up too high, so too shallow a sag. Means the bike doesn't corner as well, so when I'm coming into stuff, I'm having to put a lot more body language into making the bike turn and making the bike hit the lines that I want it to hit. So I'm holding on to it a lot more, which is not what you want either. I want the bike to be set up confident so I can just let it sing, and the bike goes fast, it changes direction well, and then it's just my skills that hold me back from where I want to be, or will get me to where I want to be. So the 500 was perfect amount of support. Everything was good. Everything was good about the 500 except for the handling. And then when I got it on a faster, rougher track, way too choppy. Way too choppy. Once it goes into the travel, way too choppy. Just too firm a spring rate. 475. So I forked out. I've gone all in. Forked out another 200 and something bucks for the super light spring or super light steel spring from Fox. 475. Perfect ride height. So my sag is what feels like 30-31% used to feel like with the standard link. So they say 18.5 millimeters. I haven't measured it because it's kind of hard to get an accurate one person. I need someone else here to measure it. So I've just gone by feel with the sag. I know what feels right. I've been riding this bike for a long time. I know exactly where the sag should be. This gets me exactly where the sag should be. It's relatively efficient to climb, relatively efficient to pedal around on, not super efficient to pump around on. It's still got not a lot of mid-stroke support, but the bottom out support's excellent. Heaps and heaps and heaps of bottom out support. If you're going to be riding this bike on flat, or not so much flat, but smooth jump trails, long descents that aren't too choppy, it's killer. It's no worries, it's perfect. But if you're a heavier guy, it's probably not going to work for you, because I'm only 75 fully kitted, and I'm at a 475 spring, so I'm right up there in the spring rate. And they only go to 600. I think some brands do a 650 pound spring. So it's definitely not for you if you're going to be running. If you're a heavier dude and you want to run the Cascade and a Coil, it demands too high an initial spring rate because it's ramped up so much at the other end, at the end of the travel. It has to be really, really soft off the start of the travel. So they're not just magically adding more progression, they're taking support from the start of the travel and they're adding it to the end of the travel. So now there's less support at the start and the middle and way more at the end. And it's just too choppy. It's too choppy. If you're going to be riding hard technical trails, rough trails, anything like that, you're probably going to find it similar to the DPX2 with spaces in it, just a little bit too choppy. You got to run it real deep in the sag to get rid of that chop, and then you lose a lot of your efficiency, and you also lose pedal clearance, and you do get better handling, but I don't think it's a good trade-off for the poor pedal clearance and the ramp up that you get. It just goes from soft to hard. I don't like my suspension going soft to hard. I don't like it being soft off the top and really hard at the bottom. I like it being consistently efficient and consistently firm. So when I run a more linear setup, it's always more supple. It's more efficient, feels more firm, but it's more supple. So didn't really work in any configuration excellent, but it worked well. So Moriata's my local trail out here. It's quite fast, but it's not very rough. And this was great on that trail. It was good for the handling, carried good speed. I could slay turns, and that's what got me excited, being able to slay corners, because there's a certain point on this bike in the sag where it slays perfectly, and the 475 got that perfect. But I've got no ability to change the curve of the spring with the Coil, so I'm kind of stuck at a compromise of, do I want it in 450 where it's slower but it's going to maul harder on the steep stuff? Do I want it at the 500 spring where I've got way more efficiency but it's super choppy on the rough stuff and the hard, fast trails? Or do I want the 475, which is kind of a blend of both, but still doesn't have great big hit performance? It's still kicking me off the pedals through the real choppy stuff, regardless of compression and rebound tune, which I did a fairly comprehensive run through. A little bit of rebound, slower rebound, faster rebound, a little bit of compression, a lot of compression, back to a little bit, and just never found it excellent. So I believe that 24% progressivity on any bike is too much. It's definitely too much. Like I said before, this is 11% straight out the box. I think anywhere between kind of that mark, that 10% mark, probably 10, 11%, maybe a little soft for some people, but I like it. I think it's good. I need to spend more time. And more experimenting, obviously, to get a more comprehensive idea of what I think of these, progressivity versus linear and digressive and all these different rates that different suspension designs cater to. But I think around the 15%, if you can get a bike that's got around the 15% mark, you can run a Coil, you can run an air shock, you can tune it to whatever you like. It'd probably be pretty well spot on the mark. Anywhere up to 20%, I think you can probably find a good 20%. You're definitely probably going to be leaning towards a Coil. It'll still work with both. Coil will work really well. I think 15% is probably bang on for the Coil. So the Coil isn't super linear. They say, oh, it's a linear. It is linear. Like it becomes consistently harder to squash as it goes through its travel. Whereas a progressive spring or a progressive curve becomes exponentially harder as it compresses through the travel. That's my understanding of it anyway. So the long and short of it is, I don't think anything over 20% progressivity, unless you're building a like a Rampage style, just a big hit bike, that'd be perfect, because I never bottomed it. I hit a couple of big horsies yesterday, good example. I hit a couple of big compressions, and there's no way I was bottoming it out. There's no way I was bottoming it out, so there's still plenty of support there. I liked it. I mentioned in my initial video with this that at full compression, this almost touches this, so the seat, this arch here on the seat stay almost touches the seat tube. But I do have clearance here on the piggyback of the shock, so that's cool. Clearance is cool there. Clearance is very iffy there, so be mindful. No clearance issues on the standard link, obviously. So transition, definitely look into that before you start warranting bikes with this linkage, because I'm sure you looked into it, but definitely do your testing, because there is, if I clunk it hard, I can definitely hit that into the seat. So I never bottomed it out. I just think it's too progressive. I think this link's too progressive for the bike. It's Sentinel / Patrol, so it would work well on the Sentinel. It'll be right at the upper end of, you don't want it any more progressive, but I think that 4% less progression is the equivalent to maybe taking a token out, which is kind of what this needs. All I need is just one token out, so I can run it a little bit more linear. Then it'll be excellent. And I've got a little bit of room to come up in the sag a little bit, so I think the Sentinel, I think it'll work killer on the Sentinel. A friend of mine had one on his Sentinel, loved it. So, but 20% is the max. 20% progression is the max. Not super stoked with it, but glad I went through the testing. Glad I went through chasing the proper spring rate and went the whole hog, to find out exactly what's going on. Obviously for you guys, but also for myself. It's just more data in the brain, and will help me decipher things later on down the track with different bikes. So my next step is standard link back on, still running the coil. I'll have to drop the spring rate to probably a 400. I've got a 400, I've got a 450 spring, so I'll see where we set there, and I'll see how this bike runs standard link with a coil, because all of the new transitions, the 2020 transition patrols, all come with a coil as standard. Forever they said coil doesn't work on this bike, but now they're releasing it standard with a coil, so I'm interested to see how that feels. And if it is too linear and I want to get it closer to that 15, maybe a dual rate spring is perfect. Maybe I can go to the progressive spring or dual rate spring. So that's the next step. Back to standard link, coil, and then eventually back to standard link and my Super Deluxe, which is the perfect setup. This bike doesn't get any better than Super Deluxe with a Megneg standard link. So I'll have a look at that, and then yeah, who knows what's next after that.